Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome to Under Fire. I am your humble yet astoundingly talented host, Ken Thacker. Well, it's been a long day. Just got done putting in a 12-hour day at work, but I wanted to go ahead and get this out. Basically, an Inauguration Day statement, so we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Excuse me, let me correct myself. That's Coronation Day statement. Okay, well, as today is a day of changes here in America, earlier today we saw the coronation of His Most Exalted Majesty, the Messiah himself. Today, Barack Hussein Obama was installed as General Secretary of the Socialist States of America. Today we watched as the great experiment called America took yet another step closer to her ultimate demise. Will this nation survive the Obama regime? Only time will tell. The new era is here, my friends. Welcome to day one of America's shame. Right now, though, I really don't want to talk about the incoming regime. I actually want to take a look back at the last 8 years. I am no friend of George W. Bush, and I think I've made that pretty clear over the last few videos. Although I voted for the man twice in the past 2 years, I have come to regret those votes. In that, he is like his father, and I can say without a doubt that I will never vote for another Bush. Sorry, Jeb. When it comes to your family, 3 times is not a charm. The damage that family has done to conservatives and to this country is incalculable, and it will take decades for us to recover from it, if we recover at all. Again, though, I really don't want to focus on negative. In a day that has been nothing but a negative moment in this nation's history, I'd like to take a few moments and reflect on what has happened in the past 8 years. I'd also like to make a point on who it will be who will write the history of George W. Bush. Now, I don't think anyone really expected George W. Bush to be a great president. Now, I'm sure that those die-hard Bush supporters out there are probably looking for firewood to burn me at the stake with. I can only say to you that you'll have to get in line behind the liberals. They were here first. Sorry, first come, first serve. I, for one, expected Bush to be a president that would concentrate on and be known as a president who concentrated on domestic policy. It was no real secret that international affairs were not the strength of candidate George Bush. As such, I did not expect that a President George Bush would make much of a splash on the international scene. Who knew? Who knew that those Islamo-fascist bastards would come into our country and take down the Twin Towers? Who knew before he even had 1 year in office, we would see George W. Bush standing on top of a funeral pyre of over 2,000 of our citizens with a fire chief promising the nation that the butchers who were responsible for the attack would be hearing from us. And hear from us they did. What would have happened if that fateful day had not occurred? It really makes you wonder. Where would we be right now had that never happened? I know that when Bush took office, I did not expect much from him other than to perhaps restore the dignity to the office of the President of the United States that had been so soiled by Bill Clinton. I had hoped that he would return the nation to a policy of fiscal responsibility and turn away from the tax and spend policies of the Clinton era. I expected him to undo many of Bill Clinton's attempts at social engineering and socialism and perhaps make some positive contributions of his own in shrinking the burgeoning size of the federal government that exploded under the Clintons. Who knew? Who knew that within 2 years of his being in office, we would have engaged not one, but 2 Middle Eastern nations and destroyed each of the dictatorships that were running those nations? Who knew that George W. Bush would have to tell the UN just where to stick their in Security Council decisions something that I assure you a majority of Americans have wanted to do for years. But it's easy, really easy, to carp and criticize and have, and I have and will carp and criticize President Bush in the areas where I feel that he was wrong. But for those of us who sit at a desk in front of a computer monitor, for those of us who are armchair or couch presidents in front of the TV, in front of our TVs while watching CNN or Fox or whatever your flavor is for a half an hour a day, it is rather easy for us to analyze the man in retrospect. Hindsight is a wonderful thing. It tells you how you got your teeth kicked in after you're done spitting them out. It's easy to say, well, I would have done this or that or the other. It's easy to point out in intimate detail just where and when the man went wrong. When you're the one in the line of fire, when you're the one in the hot seat, it's an entirely different story. I, for one, know what it's like to be in a position of leadership where your decisions can have life or death ramifications. I know what it's like to have to make split-second decisions, and if you decide wrong, people die. I know what it's like to have to make a decision when you have incomplete information or information that you are not entirely comfortable with. I know that in times like that, like it or not, you have to go with your instincts, with what your gut tells you. And in the end, right or wrong, you have to live with that decision. Almost everyone likes to say, if I was the president, everyone wants to say that. Don't lie to yourself. You've said it. Everybody said it. Okay? I would have done this, that, or the other. Most people, however, are not being honest with themselves or have no idea what it is that they're blathering about when they make such a statement. What would I have done had I been in George Bush's shoes? Would I have handled the situations differently? Certainly. We're different men of differing opinions, and we have different styles. Would I have handled them as well? There's just no real way of knowing that. And while I'm sure of myself enough to believe that I would have made better decisions than he did in a lot of areas, I'm also realistic enough to know that in other areas I might have made decisions that would prove less effective than his did in the end. How he handled the 9/11 attacks to me was phenomenal. In many ways, he was like a strong father or uncle who comforted the nation as it mourned. I know that I would have failed utterly in that aspect. I'm a fixer, a doer. When I see a problem, I immediately go into problem-solving mode. I also have an extensive military background, which means that I automatically start thinking tactically in situations like Mr. Bush faced. When Bush was comforting the nation, at that time, I would have been on a military base somewhere, gathering intelligence and planning for an immediate war with whomever was responsible. How would history have judged me for a response like that? I don't know. I'm sure I would have had my detractors as well as my supporters. I would have also handled the UN in a much different manner than Mr. Bush did. I would have told them what I was planning on doing, why I was doing it, and I would have told them that if they did not like it, they could move their headquarters to Paris or Geneva or anywhere else that they wanted to. Getting the